All right, ready to dive deep. Today, it's all about Prince and a whole lot of music you've probably never heard.
Oh yeah, this will be good.
We're talking about unreleased Prince projects, albums, music videos. The sheer amount of it is mind-blowing. There's a whole Wikipedia article that lays it all out. Like, how much is out there?
It's crazy. It's like, even after he's gone, there's this whole other side of him we're still discovering.
Exactly. And that's what we're going to try to unpack today. Where do we even begin?
Well, if we're talking unreleased, we got to go back to the beginning.
Okay, so back to, like, pre-fame Prince.
Yeah, like 1976. 18-year-old Prince. There's this demo tape that was found, get this, in an attic.
No way.
Yeah, and then it got auctioned off.
I love those stories. Like, imagine finding that in your grandma's attic or something. What's on it?
Stuff like, just as long as we're together, my love is forever.
Oh.
You can hear that early Prince sound, but raw, you know?
Yeah, before the polish and all that. It's like a time capsule.
Totally. It's a glimpse into where he started.
It's amazing to think that these songs existed for so long and nobody even knew about them.
And think about it. We know Prince as this icon. But this demo, it's like seeing him before the world knew his name.
Okay, so we've got the demo. Now let's talk about the Rebels.
Ah, the Rebel.
This was Prince's band before the time, right?
Yep. And it was a different vibe, more rock influenced.
That's interesting. So even back then, he was experimenting with different sounds.
Oh, absolutely. And what's cool is that some of the songs they worked on during that time ended up resurfacing later.
Really?
Yeah, like If I Love You Tonight and You, those have roots in the Rebels era.
So he was kind of repurposing his older material.
Exactly. He was always thinking ahead, you know.
Yeah.
Recycling, refining.
I love that. Okay, let's jump ahead a bit. The Second Coming. Now, this is one that could have been huge.
Oh, yeah. Imagine a Prince concert film from the Controversy Tour.
That would have been incredible.
The set list alone, Uptown, Dirty Mind, Controversy. Man.
What happened? Why didn't it get released?
Nobody really knows for sure. It was filmed, it was planned, and then nothing.
Oh, that's frustrating. So it wasn't just a concert film though, right?
No, it was supposed to have a storyline woven in, like a mini movie.
See, that's what I love about Prince. He was always pushing the boundaries.
Totally. And The Second Coming could have been a game changer, you know.
Okay, let's fast forward to the 80s where things really explode. First up, the Apollonia 6 film. Now, this wasn't just a music video. It was a whole mini-movie with a plot and everything.
And the music was killer. Sex shooter, happy birthday, Mr. Christian.
Yeah.
Pure 80s energy.
Right. It's crazy to think that this film just exists somewhere, unseen.
It's like a lost artifact.
Okay, now let's talk about The Flesh.
Oh, man, The Flesh. This is where Prince gets really interesting.
Because it's not typical Prince, right? It's more jazz-funk instrumental stuff.
Exactly. It was Prince flexing his musical muscles in a different way. Not just pop hits, but complex, almost experimental jams.
It's almost like he was challenging his audience a bit, saying, hey, I can do this too.
Totally.
Yeah.
And he wasn't afraid to push boundaries.
And there was junk music planned for that album, right?
Yeah, it's this epic 20-minute instrumental jam.
Yeah.
We only ever got a snippet of it in Under the Cherry Moon, but can you imagine the full thing?
Wow, it's like a glimpse into an alternate reality where Prince went full-on jazz fusion.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it makes you realize just how deep his musicality went.
Okay, speaking of deep dives, let's talk about Dream Factory.
Ah, Dream Factory. This one takes us behind the scenes.
Right, it's about the collaborative process with the revolution.
You get these different versions of the album floating around showing how it evolved, how they worked together.
And it eventually became Crystal Ball, right?
Yeah, but it's fascinating to think about what the original vision was.
It makes you appreciate the journey, how Prince was constantly refining and rethinking things.
It's like he was never satisfied, always pushing for something new.
And then there's Camille. Now, this wasn't just an album, it was a whole persona.
Yeah, this androgynous alter ego.
He even manipulated his voice to sound higher.
It was daring, for sure. And most of those songs ended up on other albums, but Rebirth of the Flesh, that stayed hidden for years.
That song is like a key to understanding Camille.
It's provocative, sensual, different. Okay, so now we're getting into the late 80s, and things start to get interesting with Warner Brothers.
Ah, here comes the drama.
Yeah, this is where the tension starts to build. Enter Crystal Ball, Prince's triple album.
The one the label rejected.
Yeah. Can you imagine Prince at his peak trying to put out this massive statement and the label says no?
That must have been a blow.
Oh, for sure. It was a clash of visions, artistic freedom versus commercial pressures.
And it wasn't just some random collection of songs, right? Crystal Ball was carefully crafted.
Yeah, it had a narrative arc, a scope that was unheard of at the time. It was ambitious, to say the least.
It's like he was trying to create his own Sandinista or something.
Yeah, exactly. And even though he had to trim it down to release Sign the Times, you can still feel the echoes of that ambition.
Yeah, you can sense that there was something bigger there.
Like a vision that was only partially realized.
It makes you wonder what could have been.
And that's just the beginning of the story.
But Prince, he didn't let that stop him.
Nope, not at all. It's almost like it fueled him even more.
Yeah, like he was proving a point or something.
Right. And then boom, Madhouse is 24.
Oh, yeah, that was a cool project. All instrumental, right?
Yeah, with Eric Leeds on sax. And get this, there were actually 2 versions of it.
Really? 2 versions?
One from 89 and another one that came out in 94. Different track lists, different vibes.
That's so Prince, though. Always evolving, never staying in one place too long.
It's like he was constantly reimagining things, pushing the music forward.
Okay, so we've got Madhouse, but let's not forget about all the other artists Prince was working with at the time. Like, there's a whole unreleased Sheila E. album from 89.
Oh yeah, that's a hidden gem. Some great stuff on there. Scarlet Pussy.
Ooh, I've heard that one.
And her cover of Donny Hathaway's The Ghetto is incredible.
It's amazing how much music he was involved in, not just his own stuff.
He was like this creative force,
Yeah.
elevating everyone around him.
Okay, let's move on to the post-revolution era. The Times corporate world is a fascinating one. Warner Bros. Shelved it, but some of those songs ended up on later albums.
It would have been interesting to hear that album in its entirety, as Prince intended.
Yeah, especially with that title, Corporate World. It makes you wonder what he was trying to say.
Right. It was the late 80s, the music industry was changing, and maybe Prince was using the time to comment on all that.
That's a good point. I'd love to hear those lyrics in context. Okay, and then we've got Raven to the Joy Fantastic. That album went through so many changes. It's almost like a different album entirely by the time it actually gets released.
Yeah, that one's a real chameleon. You've got early versions with house music influences, then tracks that end up on Graffiti Bridge. Some even pop up on a Carmen Electra album.
It's like he was throwing everything at the wall and seeing what stuck.
He was always experimenting, trying new things.
Okay, but remember Tora Experience.
Oh yeah, that's one of those Prince mysteries that drives fans crazy.
It got a mention on the NPG's Exodus album, but that's it.
It's like a whisper, a hint of something amazing that never materialized.
And then you've got The Undertaker, which was almost like a gift to his guitar fans.
Raw, live energy, heavy on the rock and blues. And he was going to give that away free with Guitar Player magazine.
Oh, wow. Seriously. That's so cool.
It shows you how much he valued that connection with his fans.
And it reminds us that under all the pop star stuff, he was a phenomenal musician, a guy who could just shred.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now we're getting into the 90s, and there's a whole bunch of projects to talk about.
Like Heart, which was supposedly an acoustic album. And then there's Live and the Live Experience.
Those live albums are especially interesting to me.
Because you can capture that energy, the improvisation, the magic of a Prince show.
Exactly. And then there was talk of a New World album.
Oh yeah, Mady Garcia mentioned that in an interview.
She described it as a techno album.
Prince, ahead of the curve as always. It makes you wonder what else he was experimenting with that we don't even know about.
It's frustrating, right? To think of all this music that's out there somewhere.
Okay, and then there's the mystery of the vault.
3 volumes announced, but never released.
What was the deal with that? Was it a power play against the label?
Maybe.
Yeah.
It definitely highlights that tension, that struggle for control over his music.
Okay, and then we have Happy Tears, a children's album.
Oh, that's so sweet.
He was planning it with Mate. Imagine, lullabies, children's stories.
It shows a different side of him, the softer side.
And then there's The Dawn, which went through a bunch of different versions over the years.
Yeah, it's like a musical diary, reflecting different stages in his life.
And speaking of personal connections, we have to talk about Mady Garcia's unreleased album, Scorpio.
Oh yeah, that one's heartbreaking.
It was going to be her follow-up to Child of the Sun, and it would have captured their relationship both personally and creatively.
It's a reminder that he wasn't just a musician, but a mentor, a collaborator.
Okay, get ready, because the unreleased projects just keep coming. Beautiful Strange, Roadhouse Garden, The Very Best of O, plus Win last December.
And In All My Dreams.
It's overwhelming, but it also shows how much he was creating.
It's like he was overflowing with music.
Okay, deep breath. Then we get into the late 90s, early 2000s, and it's like a whole new era for Prince.
The internet is changing everything. And he's right there on the front lines.
He was always ahead of the curve. So what was this new funk sampling series?
Oh, this was brilliant. He was basically going to offer over 700 samples of his music for other artists to use.
Wait, what? He was just going to give them away?
Yeah. It was revolutionary. Like, here's my sonic palette, go create something.
Wow. That's incredible.
It shows you how he was always thinking about the future of music.
It makes you wonder how music history might be different if those samples had actually been released.
Right. Would we have a whole generation of artists inspired by Prince's sound in a totally different way?
Okay, so there's that. And then Crystal Ball Volume 2, which was going to be fan-driven, with people voting on the track list.
It's like he was bringing the fans into the creative process.
And there was going to be a DVD with music videos for both volumes of Crystal Ball.
He was always thinking visually, too.
Okay, I'm trying to keep up here. We've also got a celebration when two are in love, the hot experience.
The Chocolate Invasion boxed set.
It's like he was creating faster than we could consume it.
He never stopped.
Yeah.
Even the albums that never came out, they're still a part of his journey.
Okay, then there's High, which was actually finished and ready for release in 2000, but it just disappeared.
We got one single, You Make My Sunshine, with Angie Stone, but that was it.
What happened?
It's a mystery, but it makes you realize that even in the digital age, things can get lost, forgotten.
Oh, and NPG's Peace. We got a couple of tracks during the Hit and Run tour, but the full album is still out there somewhere.
It's like a little breadcrumb trail, leading us deeper into the mystery.
Okay, this one is a big one. An untitled Kevin Smith documentary filmed at Paisley Park in 2001.
That's the holy grail for Prince fans. Imagine what's on that footage.
It's almost cruel that it's just sitting there unreleased.
Right, but the rumors just keep swirling. Madrid to Chicago, the LC.
The Montreux Jazz Festival concert film.
It's almost too much to process, but it also speaks to his dedication, his work ethic.
Yeah, the man was a machine. Okay, hold on. I need to catch my breath. We've still got Piano and A microphone.
Ah, yes, Piano and A microphone. Recorded during his final tour, mixed, ready to go, and then nothing.
It's bittersweet, you know, to think about all this music we'll probably never get to hear.
But also the music that's still out there waiting to be discovered.
Okay, I'm officially overwhelmed. Like, my head is spinning with all this music. It's incredible, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like we've been on this marathon through Prince's creative process.
And to think we've only scratched the surface.
It really puts things in perspective. You know,
Yeah.
Prince wasn't just a musician. He was like this force of nature.
Always pushing, always evolving.
Yeah, never satisfied. And that's why these unreleased projects are so valuable.
They give us a glimpse into his process, his evolution.
They're like pieces of a puzzle, each one revealing a little bit more about who he was as an artist.
I love how we get to see all these different sides of him. The playful side, the rock star, the introspective side.
And what's amazing is that even though he's gone, the music continues to unfold.
Yeah, it's like he's still speaking to us through these recordings.
Challenging us to think differently about music and creativity. So what was it for you? What stood out the most?
I think for me, it's the sheer volume of it all. It's almost too much to process.
Right. It's overwhelming, but it's also exciting, you know.
Definitely exciting.
Yeah.
But it also makes you wonder, where do we even start with all of this?
I think the key is just to approach it with an open mind, you know. Don't get bogged down in the details. Just let the music wash over you.
That's good advice. And don't be afraid to explore, right?
Exactly. Go deep, track down those bootlegs, do the research. You never know what you're going to find.
This whole deep dive has really changed how I see Prince. I thought I knew him, but...
But there was so much more beneath the surface.
Exactly. And the craziest thing is that there's still so much more out there waiting to be discovered.
It's like this never-ending treasure hunt.
So if there's one thing you want our listeners to take away from this conversation, what would it be?
I'd say let yourself be inspired by his fearlessness.
You know, his willingness to experiment, to push the boundaries.
Exactly. And be curious. Keep digging, keep listening. Who knows? Maybe one day a Kevin Smith documentary will surface.
One can only hope.
Until then, keep the music playing.
Yes, absolutely. Well, that's it for this deep dive into Prince's unreleased universe.
It was a journey.
We'll catch you next time on The Deep Dive.